that meant he was going to war. Bush told me he wasn't going to war. I thought they meant it. You're standing outside. You knew they didn't mean it.
Well, one of the reasons that I love Joe, and one of the reasons I think he's going to be such an effective vice president, is he's blunt when he's right and he's blunt when he's wrong. And that means that I can trust his counsel. And that's what I think a president needs from a vice president. Look, there is no choice I could have made where the person's going to agree with me 100% of the time, and I wouldn't want that person. Michelle doesn't agree with me 100% of the time. If, in fact, with Michelle, if I can get to 50%, I'm feeling pretty good.
Donald Trump said to J.D. Vance, all you do is kiss my ass to get my support. He said that. That's bad, because that means J.D. Vance is going to do whatever he wants. Ohio needs an ass kicker, not an ass kisser.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you. Yeah. Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again, calls you the consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called Barr a gutless pig. Your second Defense Secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock, and your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Canadian, milquetoast, and multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife.
And keep in mind, this is just singly and only because they all spoke against him in one way or another, or condemned one of the many indefensible actions. To just simply put this vastly stark cultural and generational difference, if we did not apply this to Donald Trump in 2016, okay, and he did not offer the same narrative, which he did at the time. I mean, he picked Mike Pence, who did not agree with Donald Trump on many things, and he publicly condemned him and denounced him in the past. But if he wouldn't have done this then, and what he is doing now, which is 100% loyalty, he wants to pick 100% of people who have only fidelity to him and not the Constitution. And I love how they say, oh, it's the DEI hire for a very beyond gifted and experienced black woman, but when it comes to a white man selected by Donald Trump, they call them patriots, and they completely disregard the fact that they are yes men, and they are only selected because of their loyalty and their notoriety towards Donald Trump. But if you apply this to retrospect, just for a second here, go back to 2016, and he was running on this, and the same platform that he's running on now in 2024. Donald Trump is way worse now than he was in 2016 and in 2020. He's become so unhinged. He's become so unnerved and perturbed, and really just, I don't know what's wrong with him. Erratic, frantic, but he wants to go after his political opponents. And if it was up to Donald Trump in his first term, let's just establish this real quick. If it was up to Donald Trump solely in his first term, he would have pulled out of NATO, okay? He would have bought Greenland. He would have bought Iceland. And he would have established a moat across the southern border filled with alligators. And this is not parody. This is real. He actually suggested to his top advisors, and this has been confirmed by his top advisors, that he wanted to have a moat filled, a trench with alligators, so that people across the southern border would be eaten alive and maimed if they were to cross the border illegally. And this is including young children crawling across the fence with barbed wire and razors and spikes on top, which he publicly suggested and hinted at before. Oh, and by the way, this is really relevant right now, especially. But I forgot to mention that if it was up to Trump back in 2020, TikTok would have been banned. And also it's the fact that he was talking about torturing people, okay? And if this would have went through, if he would have had the people like J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard and all of these people who are strictly loyal to him and only him because they know that their political career relies on it. They're willing to sell their soul for political power. This is what this is. This is power hungry. This is not a legitimacy and authentic cabinet that he's appointing. I mean, all these people have no experience, none. I mean, look at their record. Look at their persona. They have none. It's like a Fox News host and people accused of sexual assault and rape. I mean, and the bad deeds, the worst deeds that you can possibly characterize as a person, all of Donald Trump's cabinet members have. And if you look at all of them, you realize a very compatible similarity between amongst all of them, and it is that, again, they are willing to bend down to Donald Trump and do whatever that he delegates them to do. And this is something that we've seen in contrast from people like Obama and Kamala Harris, which Kamala Harris was the legitimate standard choice that we should have had for president. Because she was willing to put Republicans in her cabinet, and she publicly has stated this. Donald Trump is not willing to put anybody who has any opposing view whatsoever in his cabinet. Anybody who speaks against him this time, he completely blocks them off from being even considered to be in his presidential cabinet. And you know, a lot of these people that he surrounded himself with during his first term, he called them the best people, and they were actually reasonable people. I mean, I completely wholeheartedly disagreed with them when it comes to policy matters. But this time, what's so distinctively divergent in this incoming administration, again, is that he didn't have those people. He's not going to have those people this time, which he had in his first term, to rein him in from his absolute worst impulses. Because I don't know how you cannot see Donald Trump as an incompetent, crazed, maniacal man who has cheated people his entire life. He bragged about not paying his workers that he hired back in the 1990s and the 1980s their overtime fees. I mean, this is not a guy that you would want having total control over the presidency. But this is what we get because this is how the country is, and it's so unfortunate.